Frequency is a repeated action over a period of time, like how frequently you watch YouTube videos, how many times you drink coffee every day, or even how many snuggles your dog gives you a month. Sound, however, has a tight schedule and is intricately related to the time scales that we think about. Take this rhythm. Now what happens if we take this rhythm and speed it up 100 times? Would you believe that this rhythm is actually C? In this simple demonstration, rhythm is pitch. Now what is pitch? Pitch is when your brain perceives a constant sound, something unbroken. Take for example G on a guitar. It sounds to us humans as one single note. Our human ear can sense between 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz a second. Just as a reminder of how crazy the human body is, we can sense sound when it's being made by a vibration of 20 times in 1 second or 20,000 times in 1 second. Now, what is rhythm? One common rhythm that you might be familiar with is BPM, or beats per minute. Songs could be slow and have 60 BPM, or very fast at 120 BPM. When you play a note from an instrument like a guitar, the string vibrates to produce the right sound. However, you're not only playing C, but when the string loses energy, it actually plays other notes as well. Take for example the same C note from the guitar in a spectrogram. In the spectrogram, we can see C and several other notes. In this case, C is just a fundamental frequency and the other notes are the overtones. These different overtones vary from instrument to instrument and give them their own special qualities. The overtones that you would like to hear are the harmonic series. If you take a string of length S and pluck it, you can see that there are many natural ways for the string to vibrate. The most immediate vibration is to vibrate the entire string. Is S the entire wavelength? Remember that a sine wave has two crests, one positive and one negative. In reality, the string is actually only displaying half of the sine wave. If we extend our string with some imaginary string to make the full sine wave, you'll see that the full wavelength is actually 2S. Then if we vibrate the string at the halfway mark, we'll see an entire sine wave, and that would mean that the next wavelength is at S. Then at the 1/3 mark, the wavelength is going to be 2/3 S. And at the 4th mark, the wavelength is 1/2 S, and at 1/5, the wavelength is at 2/5 S. Let's look for a pattern. If we look at 2L, 1L, 2/3 L, 1/2 L, and 2/5 L, they seem almost unrelated. But they have to be because we created these lengths using the rule that we vibrate a string at natural points, aka at integer subdivisions. Here's where experience kicks in because you almost never see a sequence of numbers start at 2. People really like starting at 1, and professionals even like starting earlier at 0. So how do we force the series to start at 1? Let's divide everything by 2 and place that factor of 2 in the beginning. Then we get 1L, half L, 1/3 L, 1/4 L, 1/5 L. What is this sequence of numbers then? The harmonic series, the infinite sum of 1 over n. We know that these sequences of lambdas are equal to these sequences of numbers because, we literally made them 1 minute ago. Then on the left hand side, we have lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3, lambda 4, lambda 5, etc. And 2 times our harmonic series, the infinite sum of 1 over n times L. Seems familiar? Let's sum up the left-hand side as well. Then we get the infinite sum of lambda n on our left-hand side and 2 times the infinite sum of 1 over n times L on the right-hand side. This is simply our original statement, lambda is equal to 2L, abstracted to take into account the different integer subdivisions of L. Of course, in the real world, strings aren't perfect and vibrate at points between these integer subdivisions, but our brains want to hear these frequencies because for some reason, people all over the world will say, yes, I want to hear these harmonic sounds because they sound good. This series is the Harmonic Series, and for any initial wavelength or frequency, we can calculate the Harmonic Series, depending on what your units are. This is because of the physical relationship where wavelength lambda is equal to v over f, where v is the speed of your object and f is the frequency of your object. Because the speed of sound is constant at 343 meters a second, you only need either wavelength or frequency to define the other. So in terms of wavelength, you can get the frequency as f equal v over lambda. And in terms of frequency, you can get the wavelength as lambda equal v over f. Then our harmonic series in terms of wavelength s, as shown earlier, should be the sum of 1 over n. And if you convert to frequency, you would get the sum of n. Now, what happens when we add all of this together? Rhythm and pitch are both frequencies, but on different time scales. Rhythm, which is in terms of beats per minute, and pitch, which is in hertz, are only off by a factor of 60, with the catch that the human ear can sense between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz a second. Rhythm and pitch are really off by a factor between 1,200 and 1,200,000. Now, back to the starting example, we can speed up the rhythm to be a certain pitch, or we can slow down the pitch to be a certain rhythm. However, notice that our pitch still seems pretty rough. That's because our pitch is actually approximating the nice smooth sine waves that we're accustomed to listening in music. Here's the pitch we created from a rhythm represented with a nice sine wave. Now, listen back to the pitch. Similar, right? Things become even more interesting when you realize that you don't actually ever hear these sounds alone in music. That's because when you play a note, other notes are being played too. If we run this note through a spectrum analyzer, you can see several peaks. The only time you hear a nice regular sine wave is through electronic instruments like synthesizers. Next time you hear a song or play an instrument, see if you can pick out all the different frequencies. If you get super fast fingers, maybe you too can turn rhythm into pitch.